right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the program on this Tuesday, March the 3rd, on what is known as Super Tuesday if you are a someone who follows politics, because the tonight, uh, I'm sure you'll take a peek, or you probably will. It'll be on everywhere. You get to see a lot of the states chip in. One third of all the delegates will be distributed this evening, and you'll get a good idea about really what kind of lead Bernie Sanders has going into the later stages of the race. Now, you've had the race uh, empty out here in the last couple of days, as we've all been calling for. You had obviously Steyer go up, and he didn't matter. He had put all his eggs in one basket in South Carolina, and that was it. You had Klobuchar go out, and she endorsed Biden last night in Dallas. You had Mayor Pete go out, and he endorsed Biden in Dallas. I don't think Mayor Pete is a. I think he could be someone who you'll see visibly on the campaign trail because he doesn't have a job. I don't think he would be Biden's running mate. I could see Klobuchar as his running mate. I think that could happen. She's in a key state. She's been good. She's a good campaigner. She's good on her feet. Obviously, she's a woman. So I think she's a distinct possibility. I don't think Mayor Pete will be his running mate if he gets a nomination. Bernie is banking a lot on California, and this is the key element tonight. Number one, Biden is doing this all on momentum. He didn't have any money. He hadn't put any money into the Super Tuesday states. He didn't have any money. He had no ground crew in any of the. There's no ground game, so he has no offices open. In California, Bernie had 23 offices open. Biden had one. Bernie's got a ton of money, and the idea that Bernie gets all his money from these grassroots and all these individuals, and it's all kids, and it's all $18. He gets more money from Silicon Valley than anybody. Anybody. He wants to break up all those companies. Those companies are funding his campaign. I mean, so figure that one out. So all those rich companies are giving money to Bernie Sanders. So, and he's going to own California. The question is to what level? He's been there forever. Biden doesn't even have any money to spend, and he can't afford California commercials. They're too expensive. Plus, it's an enormous state, and he's basically doing it off free TV, what he got the last couple of days. He was on TV last night. He had his campaign on TV last night. He had all the endorsements on TV. He's gotten endorsements far and wide the last couple of days. He did all the different shows last night, if you watched. So he's going to use that to try and combat and see if he can get his momentum, which is clear he's got the momentum. There's no question. And momentum is important in these things. He's clearly got the momentum of South Carolina. We'll see what happens. The key tonight, if you're interested, and if you're not, well, I can't do anything about that. Is Biden needs to get 15% in California. If he doesn't, and nobody else does, if he doesn't, he has to hope somebody else does. If nobody does except Bernie, he's going to get all the delegates. That's going to give him a substantial, an enormous lead, one that's going to be very hard to anyone to catch up to. Now, they're all banking on the idea that nobody's going to have enough delegates to win before they get to Milwaukee. I mean, that's what Bloomberg's whole basic on. Basically, Bloomberg just on TV a couple minutes ago saying, hey, Bloomberg's on TV just saying, listen, I just want to get some delegates, get to the convention. Nobody's going to win on the first ballot, and then we'll see what happens. That's what his game plan is. That's what his game plan has been all along, to get to the convention, try and buy it. After Bernie doesn't get in on the first ballot, the superdelegates are not committed to Bernie on the second ballot, but I don't know if they'll leave him. That's going to be interesting to see. That'll be tumultuous. And that will be like old-time politics. That would be like, Harry Truman politics. You're going back that far, to where they, smoke-filled rooms and brokered conventions and all that stuff. Biden's definitely got some momentum. If he has a good day, and what would be a good day? Win some of the states, not get killed in some of the ones where he's a little worried about, get 15% in those states so he gets some delegates, and stay within hailing distance. Stay within 100, 150 delegates of Bernie after tonight. If that happens, Bernie's in trouble. If Bernie has a 450 or 550 delegate lead tonight, it's going to be tough to beat. If he's got himself only like 100, 150 over Biden, Biden is right where he needs to be. The states coming up are more Biden states. Biden's going to get a lot of momentum. He's raised a lot of money in the last couple of weeks. That'll help him. He also can pick up some money along the way and pick up some more endorsements along the way. And now you got a two-man race, and you're headed towards the convention. So that will be what you look for tonight. And Klobuchar and Mayor Pete getting out of the race clearly helps Biden. Warren stayed in the race. That doesn't help Biden, hurt Biden as much. It probably hurts Bernie, because anyone who's going to vote for Warren probably would have voted for Bernie. I don't think too many of the Warren people would vote for Biden. So you now have Bernie, who's the favorite tonight. Not in every state, but of course, especially in California, which has, so many delegates, 415 delegates. I mean, that's insane. You have Biden, you have Bloomberg, and you have Warren. That's what you're left with right now as they go tonight. And Bloomberg will be on the ballot tonight. And he obviously spent hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars with his commercials. He bought 3 minutes of airtime on 2 networks on Sunday night in all the Super Tuesday states. He did interviews. So he's been pretty much everywhere. But it'll be interesting to see off what was an overwhelming win for Biden in South Carolina. That was a big win. That was a big hit for Bernie, who thought he was on his way. So it'll be interesting to see where we are after tonight. And the one thing, Bernie keeps talking about how he's bringing out this revolution and bringing out all these extra people. That has not been the case. He has not brought out that many new voters. The suburban voter, the African-American voter, especially the African-American woman, showed up in South Carolina for Biden. Now, Clyburn had a lot to do with that. He's a very influential guy. He's probably more influential in his state than just about anybody in the country. They showed up, and they showed up in big numbers for Biden. That was a very big win. Let's see how he cultivates that, coming off all the endorsements, coming off the fact that Mayor Pete and Klobuchar jumped out. So we'll find out this evening. It'll be very, very interesting. So look at the number. That's what you're looking at. You want to see, what Bloomy does. Warren will probably be out by the next. I would think barring something crazy tonight, she'd probably be out after the next 2 days. I would think that'd be she'd probably have a bad night tonight and be out. So Bloomy's not getting out, you know that. And then it's Biden and Bernie. And like I said, if the number's 450 or 500, that's not good. If the number's 150, that's very good. So that's what you're looking for after the evening's over, to see where they are as far as Biden and Bernie this evening. And again, key is California, because if no one gets 15%, he gets them all. That's the biggest critical part. Biden has to get 15%. And Biden, there was early voting, which didn't help Biden before Saturday. And he didn't spend a lot of money, nor did he have a ground game in California. That's rough. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how much momentum he got and how much free TV he got in the state of California. The polls close in the first states in 1 hour and 51 minutes. So that will set up everybody's evening as far as that. Now, a couple of things. Number one, everywhere you turn now, whether you're watching shows that deal with Wall Street, whether you're watching just the regular news, all you have heard about is the coronavirus and the virus, the ramifications of the virus. Where's the virus going to be in 2 weeks? Should you travel? Should you not? Should you go to the store? Should you not? Maybe you went and cleared out Costco. I've never been to a Costco, but I watched on TV. I saw where the Costco shelves were completely empty. My wife told me she went to the store, and she goes to a store where they have a lot of, organic vegetables, and all that stuff. She said it was empty. Basically, there was nothing left in the store. Nothing. And she shops in the store a couple times a week. And she said, I went in there, and it was unbelievable. It was worse than a hurricane. She said, it's like nothing in the store. So people are crazed right now. Now, you've heard and know that all the leagues have had meetings about what happens if. What happens if some governor shuts down his state? What happens if some mayor shuts down his city? What happens if there's an outbreak in this city, or this happens, or that happens, or they restrict air travel? So, what everyone's looking forward to is what? Conference tournaments coming up next week, NCAA tournament coming up in 2 weeks. And the NCAA said they have had extensive meetings on what they would do if there is some restriction in place anywhere in the country, or an overall restriction anywhere in the country. And they are ready, they are prepared. And remember, especially in the first round, this tournament is a made for TV event. If you know anything about the NCAA tournament, you know that on especially Thursday and Friday sites, these games are often played in front of a lot of empty seats. So that's not the case at the regional. That's obviously the Final Four is about as hot a ticket as there is in the world. But in the first rounds, that's not the case. So, there's people who have a team playing at the night session. They don't even go to the day session, or they go in and watch a little bit of the day session, or they just watch the night session or whatever. So there's always sometimes in those building sparse crowds, especially on Thursday, Friday, less so on Saturday, Sunday. But they've said they're already prepared to play in front of empty stadiums, play in front of empty arenas if they have to put the event on. So their plan is to put the event on. That's without any question. That is their plan. If they would do it in front of empty arenas, they said they would, if they had to. Now, every league, every team has stated that they have a virus worst case scenario plan in place. They haven't all gone through them, because why bother? Because there's so many different scenarios that you'd be talking about. This city's closed, this airport's closed, this town's closed, this state has restricted travel, et cetera, et cetera. You've already had some companies in our country cancel their workers' travel. They have salesmen travel, they have people travel, representatives travel around the country. They've restricted them sometimes until later this month. That's already started to happen a little bit. You got spring break coming up, so we'll see whether or not the regular places are as crowded as they normally be. I think they probably will be. I don't think people might be traveling out of the country as much now. They might cancel a vacation out of the country. I don't think anybody's going to be canceling going to Florida. I wouldn't cancel going to Florida. I wouldn't even think of that. So I'm not expecting that to be the case. But again, we don't know the severity of this yet. We don't know where it might be in 2 weeks. Things could change radically with it. We just don't know. We just don't know a whole lot about anything right now, about the severity of it, or how prevalent it's going to be, or how contagious it's going to be, or anything else. We just don't know. And it might be something we don't know until even next year, because they're talking about the fact that this could actually abate with the warmer weather in a month or 2 months and go away, and then resurface in a huge way next November, December. I've already seen doctors said that could happen, which when you think about it, that would be wild, huh? I mean, all of a sudden it goes away, you forget about it, and then it comes flying back next December and January. So I guess that is a possibility. But right now, all you're worried about is all the events that are getting ready to come up and what's going to happen. And right now, the plan is the NCAA is planning to play their tournament. Even if they play it in front of empty stadiums, they would play their tournament. So that's what their plan is right now, is to put the fields on the floor and on the road to the Final Four, and start things up as they will with Selection Sunday coming up a week from Sunday. And then obviously the play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then right into the tournament on Thursday. And remember, you have a regional here at the Garden coming up that weekend. The East Regional is going to be at Madison Square Garden, as they have kind of buried that bad blood. For years, the old days of the NIT, the NCAA wouldn't play in Madison Square Garden. That changed, though, so for the better. And there will be a regional here. Don't be surprised to see Duke. Don't be surprised to see a Seton Hall or a Villanova. Uh, Duke won't be the 1 seed, but don't be surprised if they're the 2 or the 3 seed and they wind up in a regional playing in, if they win 2 games, playing in New York, because I could see them definitely being anchored as as a team in the East. Even if they're a 2nd seed, even if they're a 3rd seed, I could see the Big East champ being the 2nd seed and Duke being the 3rd seed. Or if Duke wins its league, maybe being the 2nd seed and the Big East team being the 3rd seed. So that could be a very distinct possibility. There are 5 teams right now that can be the 1 seeds in my mind. There's no one else that can get there. And one of them is going to stumble to the 2 line. But right now you have Kansas, which I think even if they lose, they're a 1 seed. You have Gonzaga. You have Baylor. And then you have Dayton, San Diego State, one of those 2. And if they all win, they're going to have to pick between Dayton and San Diego State for that 4th spot. And unless if Baylor lost again, I guess they could fall too. I don't think Gonzaga will fall, and I don't think Kansas. I don't think there's anything. I think Kansas could fall and still be the number 1 seed. So those 5 teams, and the teams on the 2 line are way down. So those 5 teams are it. That's it. Those 5 are going to be the 1 seeds. 4 of them. One's going to be on the 2 line, along with the likes of Seton Hall, maybe. Duke, if they win their league. Florida State is a possibility. Kentucky's a possibility. Maryland's a possibility. Those are the kind of teams we're talking about that would be on the 2, spill a couple of those over to the 3, mix in some different teams there. Louisville, the ones that fell from the 2 line, a Kentucky maybe, a Villanova if they play well down the stretch, something like that, or a Seton Hall. I mean, that's what you're looking at. You know, the Big East winner could be as high as a 2. Most likely would not be lower than 3. Unless it's an outside extreme winner, like, somebody comes from way back, like St. John's and won it. That's a different story. But if it's one of the teams that you would expect, Villanova, Creighton, Seton Hall, I think they could be as high as, I think Seton Hall could be as high as the 2. I think Villanova or Creighton would probably be a 3 if they won the league. That's probably what you're looking at right now. I don't think anybody else would be that high in the league. That would be it. But it's been wide open. There's no question. You saw that this week with what St. John's did to Creighton, which was playing better than anybody in the league. So you have that from that standpoint. I'll take a quick break, and I'll come back and talk about the NFL and the Players Association and the collective bargaining agreement and the vote and everything else going on. You keep hearing about, and we're a couple of weeks away from the NFL season starting, and obviously I know everyone only cares about one thing, and that is where Tom Brady's going to wind up, but that'll take care of itself. But you keep hearing about this negotiation with the players and the league and this collective bargaining agreement, and the owners have already ratified it, so they want it, and they want to put it into place immediately. Okay, and you're talking about a very long deal. Depending on how you look at it, it's either a 10 or 11-year deal. And so it is a deal that will be in place for a long time and will set up a lot of different things, including playing conditions and everything else. And the people that are in charge of the players would like to see the players ratify this. There is still, though, a lot of players who are not very high on playing the 17th game. Now, the 17th game does not have to be played immediately. It will be played as early as 2021 or as late as 2023, but it will probably get played in 2022, most likely. It probably won't get played before then because they still have some things to work out. The question is, can they sweeten the pot with enough stuff to get the players to agree to this deal, because the NFL wants to turn around and start immediately negotiating their TV deals. They want to they want to double their TV money per year from $7.5 billion to $15 billion. Not to mention what they want to do with gambling overall, gambling in stadium, all the different things that come with that. I mean, there's and obviously streaming with people like Amazon, which is dying. I mean, just made a yes deal today to stream 21 Yankee games, which is a big part of what the future holds. The Sunday ticket could change hands. There's no question about that. So there's a lot there. Here's the here's the things that the players are going to get if they make this deal. And people are calling it a lock that the players are going to agree. I don't think it's a lock. I know the guys who are the leaders, including the guys who are in charge of the Player Association, want to get the deal done. The owners desperately want to get the deal done. And that's why the players should be very smart here and hold out for stuff that they never thought was possible, because the owners want this in the worst way, because they want to quickly turn around, know that they have labor peace for 10 or 11 years down the line, and turn around and make TV deals that will double their money instantly, from an outrageous $7.5 billion to an equally ridiculous $15 billion a year. Now, you know you're adding wild card teams. You know that. That starts next season, if this is agreed to. They go to 17 games, like I said, either by, it could happen as early as 2021, most likely 2022. It would have to happen by 2023. We don't know yet exactly what the format would be, where there's been talk of every team playing 8 home, 8 away, and 1 either neutral or international game. There's going to be an international package in the next TV deal. There's going to be a new package that is just international games. There's obviously enormous changes again to preseason. There's a lot of little things that I'm not going to get into, percentage of the gross and shifts in that and stuff like that, because you don't care. You really care if it's 48.5 or 47% of the money they get? No, you don't care. You don't care if they have media, sliding media scales in there based on certain targets, or sliding scales on new stadiums, including the LA deal, that gives them money above certain numbers, that gives them the money above certain numbers. Do you really care about that stuff? No. Here's what you do care about. What minimum players get paid. Minimum players, 60% of the league. It'll start at $610,000 for a first-year player this year, going up to over $1 million 10 years from now. So it goes up each year to where it would be over $1 million in 10 years. Same thing, there's a kick for second-year players. There's a kick for guys who have veteran status. Basically, if you're a veteran, you're going to be making about 1.4 or more every year. Remember, players in the NFL do not have their contracts guaranteed. That will never happen. Not, as you know, guaranteed in basketball and baseball. That will not happen. There's a lot of other stuff in the deal, including enlarged practice squads, enlarged regular season squads, more movement between IR and the roster, more movement week to week in the roster. Also, changes in training camp, changes in practice schedules in training camp, changes in how you can set up scrimmages in training camp, because the games are going to go away. There's no question. You know, there might be 2. You'd be down to 2 and maybe even less in the years to come. The players get a piece of all gambling. They should get a piece of all gambling. Right now, it's only being stipulated that they get a percentage of the gambling that comes from in-stadium revenue. That's gambling that is done in the stadium, so they don't get any money from the mobile revenue. They get it from the in-stadium kiosks or windows, whatever is set up in the stadium, but they also get it on every sport inside the stadium. They don't just get it on football, they get it on anything bet. So if you're there and you can also bet on basketball, you can bet on the World Series that's going on, or you can bet on horse racing, or you can bet on whatever. It's a Thursday and you want to bet on college football, whatever it may be. If you're there and you're wagering on something else, they get that piece of that too. If it's wagered in the stadium, I think they should enlarge it to get it from all gambling revenues and get themselves a very good piece of all the gambling revenues, because that could be an enormous number in the years to come. But despite there being a lot of protests, know it that there are factions in the league from a player standpoint trying to get this deal pushed through very strongly. And there's others that are dead set against it. So it's going to take weeks to sort out. And it's going to be close. It's going to be close. The way they couched the 17th game and the fact that guys are short-sighted and they can see more money now and they might not have a 17th game till 2 years from now, they'll probably ratify it for this reason. Players think about what's in their hand that day and don't think about the future. And they're like, well, what do I care what's going on 2 years? I might be hurt. I might not even be here. Who the heck knows? I'm just going to get mine now and not worry about the 17th game 2 years from now. Also, the year that 17th game comes on, you're also going to get an extra game check that year. So, I mean, your salary goes up by 1/17 immediately. So there's another situation. And plus you got more overall money in the till and more pension money and more guaranteed salary money and more jobs and more money put into the medical. So there's things that are there. But remember, why are the owners being somewhat generous? Because the amount of money they are about to make is an absolute windfall. And that's why they will do anything to get these players to ratify this deal right now. Because they can't go about it. They can't do it until the players agree to it. And then they can go hammer it out. And it'll be hammered out for the next 10 years. That's why you saw Romo's deal written the way it was. Because right now it could go away, but if this new deal is struck, then you're talking about it being a 10-year TV deal. So that changes everything. So the way the owners are treating it, the way some of the players are pushing for it, even though they might be in the minority, and the fact that they get to put the one controversial one maybe down the line a couple of years, let's say 2022, players think about today, they don't think about 2 years from now, and that will probably get the deal done. That's the smartest part of this. Give him the other stuff right now. Give him the upfront stuff right now. And don't let him think about the fact that there's another game coming in 2 years. Very, very smart. Very smart from the owner's standpoint. And from the people in the management of the Player Association who want to get this deal done. Because a lot of players are adamant about not adding any more games, but it looks like they are going to be a distant voice in this negotiation. Back after this. You come off the combine and there's guys who elevated themselves to a new status in the combine. They come off the combine, all of a sudden they're the hot guy, they're the new flavor. They just were unbelievable. Urlacher was an example of that, okay? A guy you didn't hear a lot about, then boom, all of a sudden, and that happens a lot. There were a couple of guys this year who, first of all, there were a lot of guys that ran really well, a lot of big guys. But there was some guys who were very, very impressive, okay? And obviously with the Giants picking 4 and this whole thing about what happens with Tua. Now, you know who's going off the board 1 and 2. Burrow, because of where he's from and who he is going to the Bengals. I keep hearing Dalton might go to the Bears. Chase Young's going to the Redskins. You can take that to the bank. And then it gets interesting. What are the Lions going to do? I still think here is where the Lions, who have very specific needs, could take one of the very talented defenders, whether they take the corner from Ohio State or they take Simmons, who had a huge combine. They could do that. Patricia needs to win this year. He's got Stafford. They really can't trade Stafford, but can they trade the pick when people come knocking? Where can they get to? Who's going to come knocking to get 2 or 3? Thinking that, okay, the Dolphins are going to take him at 5. Or somebody's going to trade into the Giants spot at 4 ahead of the Dolphins and take the pick. Would the Giants trade the pick and trade back? Well, the question is how many slots would they have to trade back? How much are they in love, say, with a Simmons, who they need a guy like that in the worst way, and the guy his performance was unbelievable at the combine, as you know. And then get him at the 4th pick and just take off. They need that. Or do they back up and get themselves one of those really big offensive linemen that there's a bunch of? There's a bunch of offensive linemen. There's a bunch of wide receivers in this draft. As you said, there's some guys, you had the Alabama wide receivers, and Ruggs really did well. Everyone knows what Judy is. He's a given. And he's a pro already. He's a great route runner. He catches the ball, the whole thing. You got Ruggs, who moved up, and then you got CeeDee Lamb, who was one of these guys who just wowed him and has moved himself way up now, too. So you got those 3 wide receivers, and you got 3 or 4 offensive linemen right there, led by that monster Beckham, Becton is so big. And you got other guys, too, that are right there. You got 3 or 4 offensive linemen that are right there. So the Giants could trade down and get a big offensive lineman. They can't trade down and get an impact defensive guy. That they can't do. If they want the guy, they got to stay at 4. Because at 4, they can have their pick. I mean, let's say Tua goes off the board 3. Giants have the 4th pick. The Giants could trade back, or they could take the defensive player they want. Or they could take the lineman they want. I think they would take the defensive player there. The lineman they could back up and still get him because there's a bunch of linemen. Like I said, there's depth, quality depth at wide receiver. There's 3 or 4 really top wide receivers. There's 3 or 4 really good offensive linemen. People like Herbert. Some people love a heavy Herbert. That's some people, not all. Tua, as long as the doctor of the team that's interested believes they getting a good bill of health, the talent is overwhelming, which I still think there's a very good chance. I'll tell you right now, he won't be on the board at 5. I would not be shocked if he's off the board at 3. Would not be shocked at all. But it sounds like the Lions cannot trade Stafford, and they know that, so it's not going to be the Lions take him. The Lions, though, could have somebody trade into that spot and take him. And he's the key to the whole draft, because if they leave him on the board at 3 and the Lions take Simmons or they take the kid out of Ohio State, now the Giants are in the same spot. Does somebody trade up to 4 for the Giants, or do the Giants take Simmons and leave him on the board for Miami at 5 to just take Tua? Remains to be seen. And a lot of it will have to do with exactly when guys get to really examine up close Tua and see him and see what kind of shape he's in, and then get to really go over everything with a fine-tooth comb medically. They can get the answers they need and make the decision they want. But I still think that barring something extreme with his condition, and I mean extreme, he's going off the board by 5 at the absolute latest. There are not a lot of big-time pass rush players in this draft. There's Young, and then there's obviously Simmons, who wowed him. Put forth a really, really good performance. I mean, no way around it. I mean, really exceptional in every way. Fast, athletic, run, jump, do the whole thing, do the whole thing. So from that standpoint, he's worthy of the pick, but they could trade back and get themselves a lot of players on the Jets. They could wind up with a really good wide receiver in this. But do you want to take a wide receiver in the first round? You could get one in the second round that's really good. Or you could trade up into the bottom of the first round and get one that's really good. You wouldn't have to take one that high. You can take an offensive lineman that high if you're the Jets. And there's going to be guys on the board there. If Judy's on the board when the Jets pick, that's going to be hard to pass up. I would give you that. That would be very hard to pass up. I think he has a chance to be really special. And I know some people think that there's better athletes, but you know what? There's also being a football player and running precise routes and catching the ball and doing everything, and that's what I like. I want a guy, not the other guys aren't productive, but I'd rather have the guy who plays football and is the classic football player than the guy who is just a numbers guy. And I'm not saying that just numbers guys, but the numbers have elevated their status to where they might now be deemed as the equal of Judy which they haven't been in the past. But they are in terms of running routes and doing the things that he does that is so classic, really, really vintage wide receiver stuff. But it is a draft where there's going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks. It's a draft that is loaded with offensive linemen. It's a draft that is loaded, loaded with wide receivers. And good, really talented wide receivers. Athletic, fast, athletic, can jump, can run. And you see the way these guys run now, the way these linemen run. It's unbelievable. Offensive and defense. The way they run is just amazing. Year after year, they just produce better athletes. Just year after year. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of talent there. It's actually a nice draft. And if you're going to pick at the top of it, you'd like to stop picking at the top of it if you're the Giants and the Jets. But this has got to be it for the Giants. You don't want to be back there picking in the top 5 again next year. If they do, they'll be picking with a different general manager back after this. One of the things as the Yankee injuries mount up, and we'll see if Judge plays on opening day. And listen, like I said, the Yankees have enough depth to handle that. We talked about that yesterday. One of the things you wonder about when you look at the Mets is, can Alonso put forth another year like that? Now, no one expects him to duplicate the season. Okay, nobody expects anybody to put together back-to-back 50 home run seasons. Okay, that's just a little ridiculous. But can Alonso and McNeil play the way they played last year? And I think it will be a lot for Alonso to even come close. That's how good he was last year. That's how consistent he was last year. First of all, teams are going to pitch very, very differently to him. They are not going to give him, at times, a lot to hit. He's going to have to be willing to take his walks. He's going to be treated like that kind of hitter. And, he's going to get a steady diet of pitches that are outside the zone, steady diet of off-speed pitches. And they're going to say, we're going to let somebody else beat us. It comes with the territory. But the other thing is, can McNeil play to the same level? And I'll even give you this. I think McNeil can be better. I think McNeil's that good a hitter. I would have no qualms with McNeil hitting 325 this year. And even sprinkling a little more power into his game. Now, I'd like to see him get a position and live, for the most part, at one position rather than him be asked to move around. He'll probably be asked to move around a little just to get other people's bats into the lineup. And that I can see him at third. And I can see him at second for Cano sometimes. I don't think Cano, if Cano played 120 games, that would be a good year. I don't see him playing more than 120 games, which means there's 40 games there. And you're going to want to do different things. If Cespedes is healthy, you're going to want to do different things to get Davis in the lineup. You might have to play Davis at third base. And that, of course, would move McNeil to second base. Or I guess you could, if you want to, put McNeil in the outfield, but I don't think that's in the plans right now. I did want to get away from that if they can. But I think that he is such a consistent hitter. He brings such a consistent approach to the plate that I have no doubt, zero, that he's a 300 hitter. I don't have doubts about Alonso, but I don't expect to see him come close to that this year because I don't think the opposition will allow him to come close to that this year. When a guy has a year like that, when he wrecks the season the way he did last year, they are going to adjust mightily to what he does. So those two, as they try to put another big year behind the years and establish themselves as legitimate stars, which they are, Alonso's already a huge star. McNeil is on his way to being a really solid player, or even better than that, an all-star player. And I, for one, think Cano will give them some good at-bats this year. I really do. I don't think Cano's done. I didn't think he was done last year, and I think you saw after the All-Star break that he wasn't done. I know the guy you saw in the middle of May and June. I mean, who knows who that was? That wasn't a guy we ever knew. But you saw him put together good numbers when he played in the games after the All-Star break. So I think from that standpoint, I still think you'll get good play out of him. I don't know what you'll get out of Cespedes. The one thing is a walk year would make it enticing, although I just don't know what to expect from him. I really don't. And I think Davis will hit if he gets enough opportunity to play. I think that's pretty much a given. I think, and we haven't talked that much about the Mets, we know DeGrom's a given. They need Syndergaard to be more consistent. But to me, the guy who will make the biggest difference for them is Betances if he's healthy. I think Betances could be an absolute steal and turn out to be the difference maker for the team this year. That's how good he could be. Because I don't expect Diaz to get it done. And having Betances there may prove to be the biggest move and the wisest move and the move that saved their season along the way.
Mike's on. He's ready to go. On the Fan. New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM. WFAN.
All right, here on the Fan on a little after 6 o'clock on this Tuesday evening, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila, as always, brought to you by those who drink it, and we thank them again for their patronage on this early March evening as Super Tuesday comes your way. So I know I'll be watching that stuff tonight. I don't know if you will, but that's the most interesting thing going on right now. I'm sorry, it is by a long margin. So I'll be watching that this evening. Hey, I'd rather talk about that than talk about which door Spike Lee went in last night. I mean, how did these things only with the Knicks? And it shows you it's this time of year, because if it was a month from now, if the Yankees had a game tonight, if there was anything going on, they wouldn't have been obsessed all day today, which door Spike Lee's allowed to go in. Now, to me, this is just ridiculous that it's even a story, okay? I don't think most Knicks fans care about their team. They're hoping against hope that someday it gets better. They hope that now the next and newest of Knicks presidents has some way of getting something done, although we'll wait and see. They had to be at least elated for one evening with what went on the court. But, I mean, that's what you're going to worry about? I can tell you this, okay? Number one, most Knicks fans who aren't at the games, or even the ones that aren't worried about whether Spike's going to the games or not. They're really not, okay? I think Spike's a legitimate fan, okay? I know Spike very well. He's a legitimate fan, and the best thing you could say about Spike is he pays for his seats. A lot of celebrities don't. A lot of guys don't. I mean, Spike could go to a lot of those games on a cuff. He doesn't. He buys his season tickets. He buys those front row tickets at a big buck. So to me, I could care less what door he goes in. All right? Now, I don't know if what's true and what's not true. I don't know what door he was told to go in. Is there a VIP entrance? Yes. If you're a media guy, you can go in I mean, I went in the 8th Avenue door sometimes. I went in the other door that he's talking about. You know, you want to call it the VIP door. I don't think of it that way, but if you want to call it that, I went that one a lot too. So sometimes that way, sometimes that way. I didn't think it was a big deal. If you got a guy, if he's always been going in the one on 8th and 33rd, who cares? Let him go in there. Now, if you said you have some reason why it's no longer a viable door for him, tell him in advance, and that's the end of it. You tell the guard this that no one gets in. Now, the guard's going to want to let Spike it because he knows him. He's been going there forever. Okay? The guard's going to want to let me in because I've been going through there ever. Though now I'm not welcome anymore, so things have changed because Dolan's mad at me. So he's rescinded my credentials. Because I called him a child when over this whole FAN thing. So he's pulled my credentials, and I haven't really wanted to go to a Knick game recently. Anyway, they took away. They didn't give me a credential for the Big East. I didn't ask for one this year. Last year they wouldn't give me a credential for the Big East, so I didn't go. But what's the big deal? If he's already in the building, you're going to make him go back outside? I mean, that's ridiculous. See, the Knicks or the Garden, either one, same thing. Dolan, he's very, very bad at ratcheting down situations. He's much more capable of turning them into bigger ones for no reason. But the other part of it is, even if he is right, even if it was a case where he's in the right. Okay, the Oakley case is an example. Everyone thought Oak was 100% right. What I heard, Oak wasn't 100% right. That thing got out of hand. He should have been taken out of the building in a different way. He's a beloved Knick, but he wasn't in the right when he was sitting there that night, from what I understand. But as far as the fans are concerned, or the media in New York is concerned, Dolan's wrong because they can't stand him. So he's never going to be right. He can't win these battles. He can't win this battle. So why go there? Why even make it an incident? Because he can't win. He's starting from so far below ground, he can't get up and see the pavement. No one's going to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's all there is to it. They're going to take anybody's side, including Spike. Now, like I said, I don't think most Knicks fans care whether Spike goes the rest of the year or not. I tell you right now, they'd rather see, if they're, I doubt they're going to any games. If they're even watching the games, and they might be until something else, comes along, or at least the NBA playoffs start. You got to watch something. So maybe they turn it on and hope for the best and stay with it. And in recent weeks, the Knicks have had some outings that have been acceptable. They've had even a couple of good efforts, dare I say. But why it always has to be this ridiculous stuff, it just makes no sense. But that's the way they do things. It really is. It's penny wise and pound foolish. They know they can't win that battle, so why make it an incident? You want to diffuse those things if you're an organization, and just move on. That's it. There's nothing to be gained there, except some more negative headlines. Now they don't really care. I'm sure he cares a lot more about what's going on versus Bama out on the West Coast than he does about what's going on with Spike Lee here, because that has to do with business. This doesn't affect the team in any way. Spike's going to come back because he wants to watch the team. Spike's a sports fan. He goes to the games. I mean, that's the way it is. If there's a big game, Spike's going to be there. He's going to try and be there, which is fine. Pays his way. All right. Does he try to get himself a little attention? Yeah, but that's his thing. So he likes to be noticed. Players know him, so they notice him. He wears his jerseys. He sits up front, so people notice him. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's his thing in life. So again, who cares? And he does pay his way. So who cares? It's much ado about nothing. But the thing is, Dolan can't win these battles. He has no chance. That's why they're better off not being started. And if he actually went, the way I'm hearing this is, he went in the building through the 8th Avenue way because the guards are going to let him in. They don't want to say no. They know him. They've been talking to him. They know the guy. They if you've been going there forever, they know you. You know them. You know them by name. They know you. Say, how you doing? Walk in. Now you tell him, go out and go around. I mean, come on, he's already in. Tell him next time doesn't happen again. Next time we're stopping you at the door. If that's the edict now, that that entrance isn't allowed anymore. Okay, so be it. If they tell you that entrance isn't the one you're allowed to go in anymore, it's their building. You go in the other one. It's no big deal. You go in that one. You go in the elevator. You stop at where the club is, or you go to the arena. One or the other. That's it. Get in the elevator, say hello, go to the one floor, or go to the other floor. That's it. Not too difficult. So it's not like it's a big deal. The people over there who work there are very nice. The security people there are great. Really are. They're great people. I've known them all, my God, 35 years. Very nice people there. From the guys running the elevators to the ladies at the desk to the guys who work in the restaurant to the security people, they all could not be nicer. Class people, every one of them. Treated me great my whole life. They're very nice people. I know a lot of them very well. I mean, I used to take all the food we had left over and give it to them, to the guys when they were hanging out after I did the play-by-play show. Whatever we had left over, we'd always give it to them at night. So, I mean, they're really nice people. And I'm sure this has nothing to do with them. But they get caught between a rock and a hard place. They don't want to say no to Spike when he walks in because he's been walking in there for 25 years. And why you make an incident out of something like that is silly. Spike's not a threat. He's not going to hurt anybody. He's going to his seat. He's not a security risk. The whole thing's just dumb. It really is. It's a slow day, and it's just dumb. But in the scheme of things, it means really less than nothing. It really does. He's going to be back next year. And if the team's ever good, he'll be there. He'll be thrilled. And that's what it comes down to. Can the team just figure out a way to somehow have a meaningful season? That's what really, can it find a player that people can gravitate to? They just can't get a break. I mean, how about last year? Forget Zion. How about last year if they could have gotten Morant? You know how good Morant's going to be? How about if he had and I'm not knocking Barrett. I think he's going to be a solid player. But can you imagine if Morant had just fallen in their lap? What that would have meant if that kid was in New York right now and you knew you were building a team around that guy. He's going to be such a special player for the next 10, 12 years. It's going to be unbelievable. He's got it. He's got greatness written all over him. Didn't happen. Never seems to happen for them. In the NBA, it's got to bounce. You can be good like they've been in San Antonio, or you can be good like Jerry West has been everywhere he's ever been. And as good as Jerry West was on the court, he might even be better off the court, which is almost insane to say, because that's how good he was on the court. I mean, he was it. He was Mr. Clutch. He was it. But that's how good he is off the court. Unless you have somebody like that, you need to get things to bounce your way and just be in the right place at the right time for the right player. Or just, if you have someone who just knows who the player is. I mean, think about it. How many teams, I keep saying this, how many teams did their homework on the freak? How many teams knew or had an idea what that guy was? I mean, everybody knew what LeBron James was. He was here. He wasn't a secret. But how about that guy and what he's become? And how outrageous a talent he is. And what he's doing right now, and what that team's doing right now, and what he's capable of doing. And think of how many teams passed on him. Or go back to the teams that got bluffed into passing on Kobe. The Nets did. He played them. I'm not playing for you. Yeah. Tell me that after I draft you. But the point is, think about it. How many times that special player All right, listen. Jordan had a fall in your lap. Tim Duncan, they orchestrated that pretty cunningly, in a cunning way to get Tim Duncan, to get that special player. But how many times that player just falls in your lap where you're just in the right spot at the right time, and then you got a decade. I mean, Red Auerbach was smart enough to use a loophole with Bird going back to school that year, had the right to draft him, and had a year to sign him. So he drafted him while he was still in college. So that's using your noodle, and look what he wound up with. Okay? But you can also make a trade and wind up with another special player, or somehow the player falls in your lap. That someone doesn't take the player they're supposed to take. So it happens. Because in that sport, the one player makes the difference. He does. That player you gravitate to. And, Porzingis was good, but he wasn't that player. He was not that player. If it's going to be from an injury standpoint or just a personality standpoint, he's good, but he's not what Doncic is, or what the Freak is, or that guy who changes everything. That's the guy you got to find. Once in a generation, you hope you find him. That's what you're hoping against hope for, that you just wind up. Now, you can cobble a team together like Riley's done this year in Miami. He's done a beautiful job with that team. After some really weird decisions in recent years, he's put together a nice team. Is it a team that's going to win a championship? No. Is it a team that might get exposed in the playoffs? Yeah, but you know what? They've pounded away, and they've played really well, and they drafted well, and they put some pieces together, and they put together a nice team. Well, look what Toronto's done. Taking a chance on a Van Vliet, and look what he's become, or uncovering a Siakam. You got to be good. You got to do your homework. And then you got to be lucky enough to have that player just fall into the spot sometimes. I think about what the conversations must have been. And, those players that aren't here, those players that are overseas, we don't know about those guys. We really don't. There's a lot about them we don't know. But the teams that went and, put in the time and said, this is our guy, look what they wound up with. Go look at how many teams passed on these guys now who are these special players in this league. So it does happen. It does happen. And I was thinking about this the other night because I was watching the game with Morant, and I was thinking, why couldn't this guy just have wound up in New York? Could you imagine if he was here this year, what would be going on now in this town with this kid? Now you can take the negative side and say they'd ruin it, or they'd ruin the situation, or ruin him, or something like that. All right, listen, they've earned that. They've earned that. They've shown they can, screw up a one-car funeral. I agree. They don't get the benefit of the doubt. They haven't earned that. Not in a long, long time. But it's funny. I was thinking back the other day when I was having a conversation with somebody about the Knicks, and we were talking about the day that the Knicks got the rights to Ewing, and what that was like the next couple of days, and what the expectations were. And let's be honest, he wasn't what we thought he would be. And I was around him a lot in college, and he did not become the pro that I thought he would be, because we thought he was going to be a very different player in the pros. Much more of a defensive force than he turned out to be. Much more of a ferocious player than he turned out to be. Much less of a offensive shooter, because he became one of the really, truly great shooting big men in the history of the sport. And watching his game in college, you would not have thought that would be the case. that he would be that kind of. I mean, he became really one of the great shooting big men of all time. When you think about great shooting big men, you think of Bob McAdoo, and you think of Bob Lanier, and you think of Patrick Ewing. He was a great shooting big man. Wasn't a great rebounder. Wasn't a great defender. But gave you how many great years here where if they just could have put the piece with him. But every year they were in contention with him and with the pieces around him. So it was really fun. And, you discount what 24 and 10 or 23 and 11 meant every single night. And what it gave you. It gave you an opportunity. And those days were fun. I mean, they really were. And if you're old enough to remember them, you know how much fun they really were. We miss that. I miss that. That's the thing I've missed in the last 10 years more than anything else in sports in New York is the fact that we haven't had any reason to go to the Garden and have one of those games. Like we had when the Pacers played against the Knicks or the Heat played against the Knicks. Or the Bulls played against the Knicks. And how big Riley was, and how consistent Ewing was, and how epic those battles were. I miss that. Now, talk about the Knicks when it's Oakley being dragged out of the building or Spike Lee using the wrong entrance. What a farce. That's what makes Nick news now. Spike Lee going in the wrong door. Or for how long did people talk about Oakley and that whole silly stuff that went on? In the old days, that would have been a 10-minute conversation because there was basketball to talk about. Back after this. This is usually the Tiger International because, Tiger Invitational, rather. I mean, Tiger won this thing 9,000 times. He's not playing. And he's not playing the players either. And he might have to come up to the Masters just on practice. Not easy to do. Very, very difficult. So I don't know if he's going to get a week in here along the way until Augusta. He wanted to play this week. His back's been bothering him. He's out of the Arnie's tournament, which isn't the guys show up to play Arnie's tournament out of respect, as you know, they always have. And it's one of those tournaments the Tigers always owned. So the question is, what does it mean for his spring and whether or not he can even be a forward factor, coming into the Masters if he has to come in off having all these weeks off. I mean, it's tough at his age anyway to be competing with a razor-sharp Koepka or McIlroy, who one of these years is going to not have his putter fall apart in the big spot, or Rahm is going to realize what it takes to win, or Fleetwood, who last week put it in the water on 18 at the PGA with a chance to win and still hasn't won in America, and led after 3 rounds and then didn't get the job done last week, despite how well he hits the ball. 18, a shot that he should have been able to make, an eagle possibility, a birdie to tie, put the ball in the water. But Fleetwood's going to get over the top. He's that talented. It's going to happen. McIlroy, one of these years, is going to come over here and he's going to make all those short putts that he doesn't make. I know you have Johnson always to deal with too, and then Koepka's going to be ready for the majors. He's not ready in these other tournaments. He's just not. I mean, you don't pick Koepka in these other tournaments. He just doesn't treat them the same way. He doesn't. He uses them to get ready. He doesn't try to win them. Now, I'm not saying he won't try to win the Players. He probably will, but he thinks majors. And listen, that's the way Jack thought. That's the way Tiger always thought. There's nothing wrong with Koepka thinking the same way. It's worked out really well for him with the way he's performed in majors. The Masters now, right around the corner. But like I said, it looks like Tiger will have to come up and get ready for it. I'm sure he'll play in it, but he'll have to do it with a big question mark, considering the fact that his back hasn't allowed him to play and get ready in any of these tournaments along the way in the weeks to come as they hit Florida and start to count down the weeks to Augusta, which really, once you get to the NCAA tournament, Augusta's right around the corner. It starts 3 days after they crown a champion on Monday night. They start in Augusta 3 days later. So it is a very, very big week for CBS, my buddy Jim Nance, and for all of us because we get the championship game on Monday night and then the Masters a couple of days later. Casamigos Tequila, as always, brings you the program brought to you by those who drink it. We'll see you tomorrow.